In the UK, we've seen a rise in politically motivated assaults aimed at politicians and right-wing activists in particular. These attacks have been justified as a legitimate form of protest by labelling its victims as far-right hate preachers. The phrase "punch a Nazi" was popularised after the now infamous clip of Richard Spencer being punched went viral, and attacks such as these have now become a trophy emblem for the far left. Over the last few weeks, during the European parliamentary election campaign, a new phenomenon emerged in the form of milkshake throwing. Tommy Robinson's campaign in Oldham was also subject to a riotous attack by a group identifying themselves as the Muslim Defence League, with reports of eggs, bricks and even scissors being thrown at Robinson's supporters. In these prominent cases, the mainstream reporting has often been seen as lacking, sometimes even appearing to validate and endorse these attacks. A little while ago, Rod reached out to me with his story. Rod is a regular at Speaker's Corner, where he goes to debate with the public on the subject of men's rights. Because of the visibility of Speaker's Corner in recent years, his face is likely to be known by militant anti-fascist groups, who often conflate supporting freedom of speech with supporting hate and racism. Rod was attacked after attending the Day for Freedom event in May 2018, an event which I helped organise in support of freedom of speech. Although there was a notable counter-protest from the anti-fascists, the police managed the event well and it was largely peaceful. Afterwards, however, there were rumours of trouble which had been instigated by the counter-protesters at various locations around London. We paid Rod a visit so he could tell me more about what happened to him and his friends.
My plan was to get our friends to our normal pub. And one of my friends stopped at the bar and he was carrying my ladder all day. He's 63, so he was a bit worn out and he's dying for a drink. And of course there was this woman there, and she goes, "Well, what are you doing?" He says, "We've been to the march." And she goes, "Well, I hope you're on the right side." And he goes, "I was on the right side of free speech." And there was she was swearing and things, and she had other women with her who all started up. So my mate came round, and I think he brought a couple of my other mates. There was about 4 of us, 3 or 4 of us then. And I got my beer in front of me, and I took about 2 sips, and then suddenly I looked to my right, and then you'll see us in the film, there's a black guy and a posh white guy. And the thing is, I was going to ask him if he wanted to sit down so we could talk. But he says, "What are you doing? Who are you?" And then the white guy comes along and says, "What are you doing in our pub?"
Your pub. Your pub. We're just expressing our free speech.
Oh yeah, go for it. The more the merrier.
While that was happening, we were being encircled. The whole thing was choreographed. We were circled right round and they started coming in and coming in and coming in. And they sit behind us, and the woman's giving it all this and all that. And so my mates get the cameras out and start filming. And I'm sort of like back and forth. I don't swear, don't do anything like that. Back and forth with them. I said, "What are you talking about?" The first thing he does, he comes over and lurches over and smacks the camera out of my mate's hand. And it bounces on the floor, lands on its back, and he's actually smacked it to a woman who picks it up immediately. And then he comes over and he glasses my mate with his glass. And then my mate's attacked by a load of them because there's a pillar there. And of course they all rush him, so I stand up and then I'm attacked from the side. So basically it was all on, a huge fight, and I had about 6 people attacking me all at once. And this feminist woman who I didn't even see, jumping back and forth, hitting me. And what I didn't know was that the ones who had all come in, all these young white women and posh young white guys, brought glasses and bottles, and they were showering my friends in glasses and bottles.
Got that on camera.
2 of my mates just froze when all this started. One's 63 and he got hit in the face with a bottle and had a huge bruise on his lower face. And the woman was going, "Go on, hit me, bitch. Hit me right here, bitch."
Smile.
Come on. Fucking throw a punch, bitch. Throw a fucking punch.
A little girl.
Why? I'm not a little girl. I've got a nice little top going on right now, you little fucking bitch.
So then I realised and I started screaming for the police, shouting for the police.
Can someone call the police, please? Are the police on the way? I'm all right. Yeah.
While this was happening, they were going around telling people in the pub that we were racist and that we had hit a woman.
I hit a woman.
Was there racist group called the anti-racist protesters. These guys started shouting shit to someone at the bar. They had an argument. We came in to see what was going on. Then one of our friends was mouthing off at racist critics. One of them started punching her.
My mate had a chip tooth. My shirt was all ripped. All the buttons were gone. His shirt was ripped up. And he was annoyed. They were, you got to replace them. And his phone was gone. He got that. I don't know how he got his phone back. I'm a bit dizzy now.
I got back to the road. Okay, what happened?
Sitting down having a jar. They heard out we were on the Freedom March. We've been attacked quite badly.
Start again. Tell me 5 minutes.
Jesus. Don't go away. You've got people who want to come and see you.
After attacking a small group of guys.
Especially this guy here. Let's have him.
You attacked my mate.
You're a coward.
What?
You're a coward.
Because you assaulted a woman.
Whilst my team were examining the security footage of the incident, we found evidence that indicates that this attack was somewhat more coordinated than even Rod had realised. In this footage, we see Rod arriving at the pub. Almost immediately he's spotted by the man who later became violent towards his friends. He's then joined by a man in a white shirt and a rucksack, and another man who we can later see hovering around the door during the actual attack. At the other end of the bar, several others from the group get up and watch Rod. As the lady in the wheelchair heads to the front of the pub, Rod leaves the bar and heads towards his friends. As Rod passes, a group of people appear to turn and observe him. Meanwhile, the other part of the group has gathered at the entrance where they seem to be deep in conversation. The lady in the wheelchair leaves and briefly goes outside before returning and apparently leading them all back towards Rod's group. Note that during the attack, the lady in the wheelchair can be seen towards the back of the frame, calmly observing and continuing to drink her wine.
So off they all went. And then what happened with me, I realised I'd busted something in my hand. And then I started to feel a bit giddy and sick, and then my eyes went, and my eyes started going back and forth because of the kicks to the heads and stuff, and so I had to sit down, and I had concussion. I ended up lying on the floor to stop and I had to close my eyes, otherwise I'd been sick. Luckily I hadn't eaten anything that day, otherwise I would have been. And so I got my eyes closed, and I'm having a laugh talking to people, because what happened, I'm being cheerful, because it was actually horrible what happened, but you sort of you just think, oh, well, this is good. And the joke is now, Rod will take you to for a quiet beer. And so I end up, and then the ambulance comes. So I eventually, and they help me out, and they take tests and things. So, and because I can't really see where I'm going, I can't open my eyes, otherwise I'll be sick. So I end up sitting in a wheelchair with a Weatherspoon's little rubbish tin under my arm in case I'm sick, and I get wheeled out to the pub. Of course, I'm in the ambulance, and then I get taken to hospital, and I get a couple of, if you've had concussion, they give you brain scans. And then I got my hand scanned, and I got it all bound up, and so I spent the night in the hospital. And in the morning, one of the nurses helped me with, what do they call it? Not staples, what do you keep, paper clips, to keep my shirt together, because it was all ripped. And then I went home and had to get all my stuff to go to work and travel to work. And I was cutting hedges with my arm all bandaged up and all that. And my hand's still not as strong as it was, but it's getting there.
And what about your head?
I was having bits of trouble with memory, and I also, dealing with the police was, me and my friend went up to speak with the police. And he told us from the start they didn't really have time for this. The main instigator, who was female, who actually was the main instigator of everything, who drew everyone in, where she was sitting with the bear slops on the table opposite us and whatever, there was a credit card. So my mate got it and took the name down, and he foolishly gave it to the police. And the police denied all knowledge of it. And so we got the footage. Weatherspoons gave the footage. We had all our camera footage. We put it together, and the policeman didn't do much. But then he sent me interaction with him, and then he sent that we really should just get over this. No one was seriously hurt, and they basically fobbed us off.
Rod shared with us some of the correspondence he received from the police. It confirms that some people were arrested outside the pub, but the police advised that
from CCTV and your statements, they were not shown to do anything or alleged to have done anything. I understand that you think this was an organised attack. However, from looking at the CCTV and from reading all the statements, it appears that the main instigator was the man in the middle, who we are looking at trying to identify. In my opinion, I think the best thing to do is to try and move on from all of this. The injuries sustained by yourselves were not serious, and it's not worth for you all to keep on thinking about it. You should live your lives without this in the back of your minds. I hope you guys are well and can now forget about this incident and try to get on with your lives in peace. It is not worth thinking about an incident that some stupid idiots have done.
I found this to be incredibly dismissive. The police are responsible for investigating this crime and bringing these individuals to justice. The incident arguably amounted to an organised act of affray, and at least one person was seriously assaulted. The police seem to say that although they recognise that this group have done something wrong, that Rod and his friends should just accept that there is no hope of the culprits being held to account. The police also said it was unlikely that they would be able to identify anyone within the video material, and yet we were able to identify at least one of the activists within minutes. Some of these faces are regulars on the anti-fascist scene, and have been present during other violent attacks. Why are the police not doing more to investigate these people when there is video evidence of organised political violence taking place?
Anything to do with Antifa violence or left-wing violence, they waive it. See, if you'd had any of Tommy's people, football people, or alt-right or anyone like that cause any trouble, they'd be on them like a shot. But these people, and they were like, these young people, you'll see in the thing, they were just laughing. They knew no one was going to touch them. And it's had a big effect on me. And the fact that no one did anything and we couldn't get the police to help. So the police are letting the public down, and I think anybody who goes to anything, I don't think they should stop going. I think they should support Tommy Robinson and all these other things, anything you believe in politically, but be aware the police are probably not going to protect you.
Rod's experience raises troubling questions about the way the police are responding to violence from extremist groups, particularly those with left-wing or anarchist affiliations. Whilst Rod puts on a brave face and can joke about what happened, the injuries and trauma he suffered were real and have had a lasting impact. The footage of the incident paints a disturbing picture of people acting in a pack and attacking in a premeditated fashion. They showed no remorse or sense of responsibility for what they'd done, and shamelessly blamed the victims for the crimes that they themselves had committed. Rod told us that he's lost faith in the police and justice system, and I can understand why he feels that way. Having heard his story, a story which seems to tally with my own experiences, it would seem fair to ask if our police, our politicians and our media have a blind spot when it comes to condemning far-left extremist violence. I'll continue to investigate stories such as these and attempt to bring them to a wider audience. If you'd like to help me and my team fund further investigative work, you can now support me on Subscribestar and Patreon on the links found in the description.